Hello guys, this Science of Sport video is for BTEC Sport and Exercise Sciences, Unit 2 Functional Anatomy, and this is a follow-up sort of summary video that's going to try and draw together the specific information you need for Part 4, movement efficiency. Now this all relates to question 12, the movement analysis question, which incorporates muscular and skeletal information based on the movement that's presented in the question. Now, the question 12, as I said, incorporates analysis of 3 different joints where you have to show off what you know and relate it primarily to the movement in the question. That's really important. But also, that is the ingredients, if you like, of the question. But also you can show off some icing, this in-depth additional knowledge that shows how you can recognize the movement efficiency. Now, movement efficiency, I guess, refers to how does that performer do the technique or do the skill that's being shown without wasting energy as concisely as possible and effectively as possible. So it's a lot to do with making energy work for you in the skill and not wasting any energy or not doing anything that causes you to waste energy or become injured. Now you may recognise that these are the different things that are listed and within your books and in your spec of the sorts of things that you might talk about in terms of movement efficiency. And actually this slide is what I presented in my previous video, the more detailed video. I reckon to some extent you need to learn some of these. Literally, you have to learn a couple of the sentences and put it in. So when I started to think this time, what can I do to try and support you in this topic, because I know you find it tricky, I actually came up with really similar things. So again, I've put together in red here what I think are the 3 most transferable movement efficiency factors that you could incorporate. And I think they're transferable because they could be applied to most actions or exercise movements that I think you'll see. So let's have a look. Static and dynamic balance. Static means still. So if you've got a skill which is sort of a movement, then it would be more appropriate to talk about dynamic balance. If you've got something that is held, let's say, in a still position, then you might talk about static. I'd imagine most of your actions will be dynamic. So how about this? The athlete's core muscles, bracket rectus abdominis and transverse abdominis, because you're showing off you know what they are, act as fixators. Lovely show off to know what those do. Those stabilize joints. So you're stabilizing your trunk. To stabilize the trunk and create dynamic balance. So when you're performing your skill, you need your torso, your trunk to be stabilized so that your limbs can do all the movements they need to do without you being really wobbly and losing energy. That's the gist of it. On here you can see I've put some notes. So I've put note to know the names of the core muscles, and isometric contraction is to stabilize. So there's a really abbreviated version of perhaps how you might learn this dynamic balance sentence. And then I've kind of put these together, you'll see, because if you have dynamic balance, you don't lose energy and you'll be able to perform the skill efficiently. So it makes sense to follow in with this sort of a sentence. This minimizes effort and unwanted movement. So again, minimizing how much effort you're putting into the skill and unwanted movement that obviously you don't want, whilst maximizing mechanical efficiency of elastic energy transferred through the body segments to execute the skill. And that almost dabbles a little bit with this transfer of movement across segments. So this really, if you could sort of get your head into these couple of sentences and more or less learn them, then I think that'd be a really good thing. This one is dead easy to put in almost any action and any sort of description. So muscle balance. To prevent muscle imbalance and injury of the antagonistic muscle, strength and flexibility training must be equal for both muscles in the antagonistic pair. So again, your abbreviated notes here, antagonistic muscle injury. So you're trying to avoid the antagonistic muscle getting damaged, train the pair equally, and using strength and flexibility training. With all of this stuff though, within it, you must link your phrasing. So I haven't, because I've not talked about a specific skill, but you've got to link the phrasing to the question. Please don't write anything without linking it to the question, showing that you're applying it. So I reckon learn at least 2 of these, you know, these 2 minimally. If you can learn those 3, I think that's great, and I think that'd be really good. Unlike my original advice, I reckon this might be best done as a separate paragraph. And one thing that the examiner's reports commented on was that this sort of stuff, if it was added at all, was almost thrown in at the end as an afterthought. So maybe you put it as your first paragraph and you talk about the skill as an overview, and you talk about these factors, and then you go into your 3 movement analyses. So the other remaining movement efficiency factors over here, transfer of movement across segments, kinetic chain, I think they're easy to know and easy to understand. The only my reservation about these is that I don't think they are naturally appropriate for downward phase movements. So by all means know it and apply it to any other action that's not either a static position. So if it's about holding a position, they're not appropriate because it's talking about movement. And also if it's a downward phase, I don't think it's the same sort of, it doesn't make sense downward or static. So if you've got hitting a tennis ball or serve or bowling or kicking a ball, this would all work absolutely perfectly. And if you know it, add it, but not for any held static position and not for downward phase movements. Okay, so do your best, see if you could in lesson bullet point a couple of these things. So at least 2, if not 3. See if you can learn the 3 for bullet points. If you can learn the 4th as well, brilliant, but just be mindful of when you wouldn't use it. So I may well be testing you on this in class.